morning and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening for our very first Wonder Woman Wednesday. You're welcome. This is FWN Women's Network and we're doing a series of events every other Wednesday, trying to demystify the Labour Party, make it a bit more of an accessible and friendly place, and to have some excellent panellists and discussions to answer all your questions. Thanks so much for joining us. You could have been washing your hair, watching Netflix, all the myriad things that are available to people now. So we're really grateful that you've decided to come and join us this evening. I'm the chair of FWN and it is my delight this evening to present, and this first one, it will be chaired by Anya Sizer, and we have 4 of our brand new brilliant female MPs. We are currently joined by Abena Pongasari, Taiwo Owatemi, Claudia Webb, and soon to be joined by Florence Eshlomi. We're looking forward to the next few events. On the 17th of June, we have one on demystifying the National Executive Committee. What do they do? Who are they? Why are they important? On the 1st of July, we're in conversation with Angela Rayner. What does the party chair and deputy leader do? And what advice have you got for us? And on the 15th of July, we'll be looking at diversity in local and regional government, because while we're delighted that the Labour Party's made huge strides in Parliament, there's still quite a way to go when you start to look at councils and leadership positions and devolved government. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Anya for the rest of the evening. Tell us more about tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. You're very welcome.
Hi and welcome. We're really pleased here at FWN Women's Network to be hosting the first of our Wonder Women panellists. And it feels like a really important week to be doing something like this, with so much negativity and so much difficulty out there at the moment. To be doing something so positive about these amazing women feels a really good thing to be doing. So we're really excited about tonight. There's so much that we want to hear from them. Not really enough time in an hour, unfortunately. I think we're still waiting for Flo, but I will introduce the other 3 Wonder Women on the panel. We have Taiwo Owatemi, who is the new MP for Coventry North West. She's a FWN Women's Network Exec Committee member with myself. And prior to becoming an MP, she was a senior oncology pharmacist in Dartford and Gravesham. So fantastic to have someone with a health background. That's wonderful. We then have the fantastic Abena Pongasari, MP for Erith and Thamesmead. She's still somehow the chair of the Labour Women's Network. I don't know how you find the time to do all of these things, but she's done an amazing job for many years with Labour Women's Network, and she's been a councillor and deputy leader of the Labour group on Bexley Council. And we also have the wonderful Claudia Webb, MP for Leicester East. Thank you so much for joining us. Former member of the Labour's NEC and a councillor in Islington. So we have some amazing women. We really want to hear from you tonight. So please, if you do have any questions, send them in and we'll do our best to get through them. But I will just start with asking our first question. And I think I'll go to you, Taiwo, if that's all right. And ask, what did you find the main obstacles were to becoming an MP? So if you can you unmute yourself, or do we need someone to?
Sorry about that. I guess the main obstacle was, I guess from the beginning when I joined politics, was knowing exactly how to go about in terms of building one's profile, in terms of knowing how to learn about key policy areas, how to be involved in that discussion and develop it. And it's one of the reasons why I actually joined FWN Society in the first place. And also, I guess, feeling comfortable enough and confident enough to go, actually, I have a voice and I have something to give back, and that my voice is worth being represented. I think personally, that was one of the biggest challenges that I had to overcome. I know when I first applied, I actually had a lot of people call me and say, no one really knows you. Why in the world have you decided to apply? And do you think you have a shot? And my answer was, I have something to give back. And even if I don't get selected, this is a growth opportunity and I will learn from that. So it's being able to be strong in oneself and believe that actually I have the ability, and that I believe that I can do what I want, what I feel passionate about, regardless of other people's views. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Abner, anything that you'd want to add to that question? If you unmute just on the bottom.
Hi, so the question was, what do I think were the main obstacles to becoming an MP?
Yeah.
I'd say the timescales, because we didn't really have much time to prepare. So it wasn't like a normal selection, so I wasn't really prepared for it. So I had to turn around a leaflet really quickly and call little people with little resources. And I guess that was a bit massive obstacle, because I just thought, over my membership, there's about 700 members, and I know with other CLPs like Flo's one, there's about 2,000, so I can't really complain. But it was still quite a lot of time, plus I was working full time. But I think what really helped me was people that rallied round and supported me, that came out to help me with the campaign, in terms of like calling, and it just naturally kind of fell into place. So I think that you can overcome those obstacles, and you just kind of need to believe in yourself more, because I think that I probably didn't, because I was running against a machine, so I thought that the barriers were so high, and I just thought the chances would be really, really difficult and slim. Particularly, like Taiwo said, people around me were like, well, it's sewn up for a particular candidate, so don't know why you're bothering, you're wasting your time. I had quite a number of people say that to me. And I guess me and Taiwo proved them wrong. So yeah.
You totally proved them wrong. Was that a surprise with the sort of the level of involvement that you were having to put in right at the beginning, and just all the barriers that you were up against, or were you expecting that?
Well, so we've never had a selection like this. So I've observed selections across the country before, but not one where essentially you've got to do it within 7-10 days. So I felt the goalposts kept changing on a regular basis. So it wasn't something that I was prepared for, because we hadn't come across a situation like this before. But yeah. And also I think the challenges... Yeah, sorry. So the challenges was like standing in my home seat as well. I think it's quite difficult presenting and delivering to people that you know. Whereas I think if I was to go somewhere else, I wouldn't feel that much of a feel a bit like uncomfortable, not uncomfortable, but a bit more kind of like it's really difficult to do it to your peers, particularly when they see you in a particular light and they can't really see you in that position, because you've never really indicated that to them. So yeah,
the other panelists are nodding at this point. What would I'm gonna because I don't think we've got Flo on the call yet, have we? I think we haven't got her. So I'll put this one to Claudia, please. What would you say the specific challenges of being a Black woman MP are? What are some of the issues that have come up from that? And that's to Claudia.
I thought you were going to wait until Flo comes in to answer that question for herself. But I don't want to speak.
She's not in, I don't think, is she?
Okay. But let me just say this. I think that obviously as Black women, we face dual challenges of both being Black and female. And historically, you have the glass ceiling. Historically, you have issues of racism. And of course, both of those combined keep you from moving forward in terms of making the kinds of representation that you can make as in terms of becoming a member of parliament in the first place. So somebody like myself, who's I've run 2 independent race equality councils. I've been the first Black female advisor to the first directly elected mayor of London. I've been 10 years as a councillor, and I've been 6 years or 4 years as the cabinet member for environment and transport. Now that is quite a long history of things, just that alone. notwithstanding, you know, several years in local government delivering the joint investigation of child sexual abuse training. It's quite a history, and being a member of the party for decades, of course, and of course I was a member of the National Executive Committee. But even still with all of that, there were barriers, and those barriers sometimes seemed insurmountable. But I think you need perseverance, and you need a strength of resolve, because of what you believe in. And if you believe strongly in something, and you believe that you can bring about change, and you can be at the heart of transformational change, then you will continue to pursue the agenda regardless of the obstacles that face you. And I think that that carries itself into the position of being a member of parliament in the first place. So, you know, I come to this from a place of facing direct racism. So even when I became a councillor, for example, I stood because the British National Party was standing a candidate in the area where I lived, and I wasn't prepared to have that. And I decided that I was going to put myself forward and stand up. And I faced racism on the doorsteps as well. So, you know, so you come through all of that struggle, and all of that holds you in good stead for when you become a member of parliament, because there are huge challenges to face when you become a member of parliament. And of course, you know, you know, in this particular session, of course, I think I was the last candidate to be selected for this round of elections, the very last, just because of my predecessor did a last minute resignation. And so we had 4 days to turn around an election, and it was incredible. But being a member of parliament itself, and obviously during this time of being a member of parliament, you are facing the same challenges that every member of parliament faces right now with the crisis of the coronavirus pandemic. But you face that, and you face the huge upheaval that has caused, and the huge casework that there is. But you face that alongside, of course, coming in at a tremendous time in politics, because of course we have now the largest representation of African, Asian and minority ethnic MPs ever in Parliament. So that is something to build upon. And that is something to have solidarity around. But it's an hugely important time. And of course, I come having stood there on the shoulders of giants that went before me. So in a sense that we have Diane Abbott, who you know, got elected 1987, I think it was, but it was well over 3 decades ago. And she's taken a lot for us to be here now. And that racism and that misogyny and that sexism continues. And she's received, as we've seen, the worst level of abuse than anybody else has seen. So in a sense, she's carried the weight and the burden that we may well have had to face. We still face issues, but I don't think it's as great. At least I don't, you know, we haven't experienced the worst yet. But I think these challenges of the intersectional challenges that you face, not just being a woman, not just being Black, not just being working class, but all of these issues combine. But what keeps you going is your own self-resolve and the solidarity that you can form whilst here, both in and outside of Parliament. And I think that the experiences that I've had through life, and my experiences over time, holds up. But it doesn't mean that I'm made of brick or stone. No. And it doesn't mean that I'm not human, and things do get to you as well.
Thank you, Claudia. I just want to bring in something that comes out from that conversation, actually. is the importance of support and friendship from fellow MPs. You sort of alluded to it there, and that's something I'd love to ask Abena a little bit about. That how important has that been for you, coming in and facing some of the challenges that Claudia's mentioned? How important has the female support and friendship been to you?
Important, because as Claudia says, it can be really challenging. As we're all new MPs, so we don't really get as much support in terms of like our roles. When I say support, I mean the PLP have been great, and other MPs have been great, but in terms of like having the detailed, learning the ropes, members of the public, as soon as we got elected, we had our inbox full of cases and stuff. They don't have time to wait, so we don't have time to settle into our roles. We've learned, I would say with our 2019 intake, we've built a really strong bond, and I would say that we support each other a lot. So we've got a WhatsApp group, we occasionally check in with each other, because I think like we've all started from the same setting, and it worked really well. For most of my political involvement, I've always had like a network of people around me, like develop friendships, because I think it's really important, like particularly strong female relationships, because you can find that they can relate to your experiences in terms of what you've gone wrong. And I don't really think that it serves our purpose in politics to be constantly competing against each other, because we're never going to achieve anything. You know, obviously there's been times where I've made mistakes in friendships like other people, because politics does attract in some circumstances some types of people, but you can find those network of people that you can kind of rely on and trust, and just call them up in the evening and say, oh my god, like today, oh my god, are we going home now? What's going on? Is the vote going on? Not sure, blah blah blah. We're all doing that.
It's so important, isn't it? And I think there's nothing like female friendship in these kind of examples where you just get each other and you know you've got each other's back. It's incredible. Taiwo, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just agreeing with Abena that it's really important to know that you can have a group of people that you can just call on and ask even the most silliest questions that I guess you're too conscious of asking in a big group, but you can ask just the small wider team to ask, you know, do you know why this is happening, or what is the procedure for this? I know that in the beginning, I thought when I entered into Parliament that we were going to be given a handbook, and that was going to say, this is how to set up an office, and this is how to do this. And I kept looking for that handbook, and I realised that even the MP guidebook, which is about 300 pages, wasn't that helpful, and no one had the time to actually sit down and read it because things were so busy. So having the support of your peers, of people telling you, okay, this is how to do this, this is how to even get your post from the post office, this is how to get your office set up. Those advice are really valuable in terms of being able to run an effective office. But also in terms of having that support when you do get a lot of thrashing from the media and you do feel that pressure, is having people to keep you grounded, to give you that support mentally, and who also understand. I think a lot of our friends and family are very supportive, but sometimes not everybody understands the role. And it's lovely to have a bunch of sisters where you can call up and just go, I need your help, or I don't know how to do this, can you help me? And just how easy it is to maneuver through the network. So even over simple stuff like I need a website done, or I've got a project to run, do you know somebody who you can recommend? And it's great when actually you can speak to a sister and they can just give you those details without you having to search through the long list of people that the party gives you. So yeah, I completely agree with what Abena said.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I think there's such an assumption that new MPs sort of are given this training course and find their way, and actually that's what I hear time and again, is that you're just wondering and you need those people to guide you through and hold your hand. So I think the WhatsApp group sounds spot on, actually sounds really perfect. So final question before we open up to questions, and just to remind people that we have got the Q&A function below and you can ask some questions. We've got some questions come in already, but final of our set questions anyway, and I'm going to give this to all of you, so fairly brief. For any woman who wanted to become an MP, I bet you've heard this many times, what would your advice be? What would you say to them? Claudia, let me start with you. What would you say to someone coming up to you and saying, I'm desperate to become an MP?
Well, look, I mean, as a feminist, it's actually a privilege to be the first woman member of parliament for my home city of Leicester. Women, of course, I think face challenges in public life. The 2019 general election returned, as I indicated, the highest proportion of female MPs, actually. But we are still challenged. We still only represent 34% of the House, whereas, you know, the Labour Party, that's brought down because of the Conservatives. The Labour Party actually has 104 female MPs, so over 50% of Labour MPs. And as African, Asian, minority ethnic MPs, today we represent 20% of members of Parliament, 10% in terms of the House altogether. I say we can't be complacent. We must ensure that women feel empowered, able to engage in the political system. My first advice to anyone seeking to become a member of parliament is to be true to themselves. For being a figure in public life, it's not easy, and sadly, this is especially the case for African, Asian, and Caribbean and minority ethnic women. And as I've already indicated, you only have to look at what happened in the case of Diane Abbott. She's a true giant of the feminist and anti-racist movement, and of course we're all indebted to her. But that doesn't mean that racism and sexism don't exist. They do. And of course, as I've indicated, the misogyny and the racism and the hate that Diane received means that we must continue to fight against the structures which discriminate against women in politics. It's also unfortunately the case that a career as an MP is not for the faint-hearted. I know that all those women I'm sharing a platform with today will have experienced vile abuse at some point in their careers. And I also believe that to become a Labour MP, it is crucial. Therefore, you have a strong commitment to social justice and be wanting to create transformational change. And this, for example, COVID-19 has shone a brutal light on the racial and class inequalities that exist. And therefore, we've got to be able to stand up to all of that. You know, we've shouldered a shocking 86% of the burden of Tory cuts. We can't forget that. The gendered racial inequalities in the UK and across the world, we know that there has been an unacceptable breakdown of the social contract. So to become an MP, I would have therefore advised that you've got to have a strong set of beliefs regarding the changes you want to see in the world and that you stick to them. As a socialist, one of my political heroes is actually Tony Benn, because he famously differentiated between the weather vanes and the signposters. Signposters stick to what they believe, regardless of challenge or criticism. Weather vane people change with the weather, and they don't really stick to what their principles are about. So I think it's important that when you're facing 3 urgent crises, 10 years of austerity has both contributed and damaged our ability to combat the virus, the climate change, social infrastructure. It is important that we have radical solutions that are able to address those gendered and racial inequalities. That requires us to be strong therefore we need to be leaders with strength and courage. And therefore our role is not just to mediate an unjust system. Our role must be to be able to transform it. And that's what we're here to do. And you therefore do not come into this seeking a career. You come into this because you absolutely want to transform society for the better. And so, you know, I come to this on that basis, with that level of depth and experience to boot, that helps me understand how I need to respond when in Parliament, because it's about justice, it's about social change, and it's about transformation.
Claudia, thank you so much. That's brilliant, because I think it's a very realistic view that you're giving, and it's not saying, yeah, everyone go for it, but it's not, you know, I think it's a big mantle that you're bearing. So thank you so much. What about the other two? Taiwo, let's start with you. What would you say to someone, so a woman saying, yep, this is it, I really want to get into politics, I want to become an MP? What would be your advice?
From my own personal experience, my advice would be, don't take no for an answer. The barriers are going to be there. You have to be determined, you have to be focused, and you have to know, like Claudia said, you have to know why you want to be an MP and what you want to achieve, and that motivation should keep you going. I think it's important that you form a network. You form a network not only for them to support you during the difficult times that you definitely will experience and the challenges, but also to provide you with the skills that you might need. I know a lot during my campaign, I was calling my friends, asking them, you know, do you know somebody who can develop a poster for me? And it's that network that will push you through and give you the tools that you need to have a successful campaign. And they will give you feedback needed for you to establish yourself and for you to continuously grow. I would also say, like I said, establish your brand, know exactly who you are, know exactly what you want, what story you want to be put, what story you want to put out there, and what you want to achieve, and what principles you want people to associate you with, because that's going to be important. Because sometimes people will try to define you in politics, and you have to be strong enough to say, this is who I am, and this is what I stand for. But most importantly, don't be afraid to stand for a position just because you think you're not qualified or you're not ready yet. I believe that everyone has a voice. Everybody has something uniquely different to give. And the true reality is that it doesn't matter, even if you've been in politics for ages, from everybody I've spoken to, being an MP is a completely new experience. So there's no such thing as I'm not qualified enough to do it, or I don't know how to do this. You will learn, and eventually you will establish yourself. So just take the plunge, and if you believe that you have something to give and you have that dedication, then go for it.
Amazing, thank you. Abena, over to you for last words in this section, and then we'll open up. But what would you say to that woman who wants to be an MP?
So I agree with what Taiwo and Claudia have said. I'd say the main thing is know why you want to do it. You need to also be realistic that it's not a glamorous job. You need to be extremely resilient. And I'd say make sure you go in training, like the Joe Cox training program, and other things that LWN do, because I think people that have been on those courses, it's opened up their eyes a lot more in terms of what the expectations is running to be an MP. I say also see if you can shadow an MP as well. Obviously it's really difficult to do that because we're in virtual parliament, but that will give you a good insight as to what it's like working for an MP as well. But most importantly, you need to look at what your strengths are and also what your weaknesses are. And if you've got weaknesses, look at how you can address that. So for example, with public speaking is something that you're quite concerned about. As an MP, you need to be able to do public speaking, but no one expects you to be able to do it from day one. You learn with practice. But when you go to a hustings, you need to be able to deliver your speech. So those are things that you can practice on. And also finally, don't be afraid to make mistakes, or don't, like, if you go for a selection or you submit an application, don't get upset and say that's the end of it. You learn a lot from just submitting an application. So I submitted an application when I went for Lewisham East. And I was just proud I submitted the application. I had to be encouraged to do it. I had no expectations, but that really helped me for when I was going for Erith and Thamesmead, because I had an idea as to what was expected in terms of the questions that were going to be asked. So never ever be afraid to put yourself forward, and don't see any setback as a negative thing. It's always it's good practice, and you also get to learn who your friends are, who your allies are, over like every step of the way. I've learnt things. I'm still learning now.
And that's
so helpful. Yeah, please.
And I'll just quickly say something is, everybody thinks that you have to be perfect to be an MP. There is no one's perfect. You know, you have to learn. You'll make mistakes, you will learn from it, but you shouldn't be afraid to take risk. And that's the one thing I have learnt, that it's just about ensuring that you're giving your best to it. That's why I think it's really important. Sorry.
That's so helpful, and I think what's great is you've covered some of the really practical concepts in that. You know, get the training from LWN and get the support from Fabian's, but also the emotional side of things and the value side of things. You know, it's so important that you know who you are and that you can stand on that. That's really helpful. Thank you, all of you. I think we're going to go over to some of the questions that we've been getting as we've been going along. So we're going to start with one that we'd thought of anyway. What is your proudest moment so far? Claudia, can I start with you? What would you say your proudest moment so far has been?
My proudest moment, of course, is election day. And being able to stand at the count and have it announced that I have indeed been duly elected to represent the people of Leicester East. And that was proud for me because it's in that same constituency that my father, with his identical twin brother, worked on the factory on the factory on East Park Road. Where at a time when it was tough and when life was tough, you know, and that my family came to the UK and faced those signs of no, you know, no blacks, no dogs, etc. And the fact that I'm back home in my home city with an accent that everybody understands because they recognise it. And it was really a proud moment to just be there at home in Leicester with my family and with the people that I know and the people that I grew up with. And the fact that, you know, I could say that, you know, Leicester is indeed, it was indeed the first first black city, because that's what I grew up with black being defined as those that were facing racism. We stood together and faced down racism, and that to be there, to have gone to a school, for example, that was closed down because of racism, to have gone to a school where they said to me that anybody that goes to this school will never amount to anything, and yet I am now here as a member of Parliament. That is what is proud. That I think that you know, I'm able to stand proud and know that the diversity of my city is something to be proud of, and it's not. It's a big transformation of what I grew up with, which was vile racism, hateful racism, racism that where I got beaten just walking to school and coming home from school, and you know, sometimes left with my shirt torn off my back. That is what I grew up out of, and I'm back representing a city that is now proud of its diversity. Amazing. And I couldn't be prouder of myself.
You should. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Abena, what's been some of your proudest moments or your proudest moments?
As an MP,
Yeah.
I'd say particularly helping people get the outcomes they wanted with their cases, particularly like getting those that are stranded abroad. And to be honest, I couldn't have done it with my good team, actually, who have had to be really creative in trying to get a lot of people that have been stuck in certain countries out, and we managed to get most of them out. So I'd say that's one of the proudest things, because it was kind of like stressing me out a bit. Yeah, so I'll say that's one of the few things, and plus the fact that I'm still alive. Because it's been like, yeah, it has really been a roller coaster of a journey.
I'm sure being a new MP is crazy at the best of times, but you really have been thrown in at the deep end. I mean, it's been incredible, all of you. Taiwo, how about you? What's been some of your proudest moments?
I guess on top of being able to make a tangible difference in people's lives, I think my proudest moment was actually when I gave my maiden speech. It was the first time that I think my mum, uncle and brother had ever been to Parliament. And my mum just looked shocked. Although they were there with me on the day of the count, I don't think it really sunk in that I'd won the election. And that day I could see how proud they were. I could see that they never thought it was possible. But that, hearing my speech, they realised that actually that I have been able to do something and overcome a barrier which I never thought was possible. And I guess that evening my granddad called me, and he was in tears, and he said to me, when I came here in the 60s, I never thought we had opportunity to make a tangible difference. I didn't think that our voice would ever get to a point of it being heard. And to think that a member of my family is actually involved in being able to make a difference in one side in society is just, it's something that he never thought was possible. And that was my most proudest moment, as I realized that although my family were very supportive, I don't even think they thought that it was possible. And just every single day when I get up and do my job, I'm just grateful to have that opportunity, to be honest. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. It's lovely to hear about the internal workings of the office, you know, and the wins that you get there. They often are those really amazing bits for MPs, aren't they, that Ebony, you mentioned, but then the big picture stuff as well that Claudia and Taiwo, you mentioned, that can just be so huge. It's fantastic. We've got some questions that have come in. One that I really want to know the answer to, so I'm going to be very sneaky and push this in straight away. How on earth do you manage to balance the home parliament workload? Please tell me, because I struggle and I'm not an MP. So let's start with Taiwo, because you're laughing a lot, so I want to hear how you manage that. Are you managing that?
I'm going to be honest that I'm still trying to figure it out. I work Saturdays and I work Sundays, but I'm learning, and you know, even with Fabian, I'm learning to just write down the key things I want to achieve each day and just check that I've achieved it, but also having that conversation with my friends and family to say, okay, this is when I'm free. Are you free to have I don't know, to meet up with them in a Zoom conversation, or to watch TV, or just to do something. I always explain to them that yes, my job does take my life, and I might not be as free as I used to be, but my family and my friends are still important, and therefore I would appreciate it if they join me in having a more structured way of engaging with me. And I always make sure, like in the morning, that I'll speak to like my mum, my boyfriend, everyone that I need to speak to. I make sure that I wake up early in the morning and I have that update, and before I go to sleep at night I also catch up, so to make them feel as if I'm still a part of their life. They still know what's going on, they're still engaged, but even though they won't be able to see me as much as they used to before. So I'm trying my best, but I'm learning to put them even in small moments, and I've learned just stuff like a daily catch up, even if it's just 5 minutes as a WhatsApp message. This is how I am, lunch has happened, I've had back-to-back meetings, hope everybody's well, I'll get back to you. And that's what I'm learning, that they don't need a large amount of my time, but they want to feel like they're still a part of my life and they still know what's going on. And therefore I'm ensuring and making sure that I still have that conversation. And I have to be honest, during lockdown I realized that I spent so much time in meetings, so I started writing down a list of everybody in my group that I had to contact and I haven't spoken to in a while. And then I just started circling through to go, okay, I've spoken to this uncle today, spoken to this friend today, and that just helps me to keep account and who I'm speaking to. So that's what I've been doing. It's not the most easiest thing, but I'm learning as I go along, to be honest. Yeah,
that's really helpful, actually. I quite like, I might nick a few of those ideas. Thank you. That's really good. I'm going to ask the other two in a moment as well, but I've just been asked to double check. Can anyone that's watching, can you vote on the questions that you'd like to ask? Because we will have a little bit of time now. We've got about 10, 15 minutes. And there's a few questions that have come in. So if people can vote on which questions you'd most want to ask our Wonder Women, and then we can ask them. But Claudia, how do you manage the work-life balance? Are you managing the work-life balance? Any tips, please?
I mean, look, this is a reality check. I think when you decide to do this, you know that your life almost becomes parliament, and politics actually, I think, almost can consume you, because there is just so much to get done, and particularly at this time of this crisis, I didn't think we could work any harder. But this crisis has shown that you can work even harder. We think, for example, transforming to the digital form, these Zoom meetings, you think it would make life easier, and it would create more time because you're not traveling and so on. You take the time back. But actually, there are more meetings to be held by Zoom, and more discussions and more debates. Don't think that you're going to get your Saturdays and Sundays, because we never had it anyway when we were on the campaign trail and, you know, making sure that we were knocking on doors. Well, we're doing that now, and continuously. It's 7 days a week. I'm afraid to say it is 7 days a week. I won't lie. It has consumed my entire life. And I didn't think I could work any harder before I came to Parliament. I thought I was already working hard. Coming into Parliament, I was working even harder. And of course, with the crisis that we're facing across the world with this coronavirus, it means that it is now totally consumed you. So I think that there are moments that the one thing about, obviously, the digital form, it also means that you can use that same digital form to kind of catch up with family as well, that you're not seeing on a weekly or daily basis. So you can create a family gathering so that you can connect with family via Zoom. And that's always good when you're connecting people with family globally, as all of us will have families across the world, actually, because that's one of the beauties about being from a diverse background. It means you have family everywhere, and so it means that you can catch up globally, and that's pretty good, because you can then share in a way and remind yourself, get right back to basis as to who you are, because you are the most humble with your family, and it just brings you right back to earth. That you aren't this member of Parliament. You are just Claudia, a family member, and just like you always were. And so that keeps you grounded, and I'm grateful for that, because so those connections with family and with the people that your friends, they are important, because it keeps you very grounded. And I just think that we just need to remind ourselves that as members of Parliament, we are all just, like everybody else, human beings. And so we should never think that, in a sense, we should never think that anything is greater, that we are greater than anything else. We have a lot of power, granted, but we must be able to continuously use that power to help others. And the difficulty that we have is that right now, everybody needs help. And there are people that are coming to us and they're saying to us, I never thought I would ever need to contact my member of Parliament, but they are now contacting their member of Parliament because everybody needs help. And I think that that's what keeps us busy right now. And that's why, you can see me and Tyra, we're still in our offices and we're still here. And who knows what time we'll end up going home. But this is not an easy thing. It's very difficult, and it does consume your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're really grateful, hugely grateful for the work you're doing, and I know working in an MP's office just how hard you all work. It's incredible, and I'm really glad to see Flo here on the call. Flo, thank you so much for making it and for joining us. How are you?
I'm a bit hot and tired. I should have stayed like Tyro and Claudia, because I thought I'm going to leave quickly and I'll get home. Westminster was closed. I thought, okay, so I'll walk to Victoria. Victoria was closed. Okay, I'll walk to Vauxhall. Vauxhall was closed, and I'm like, I might as well walk to Brixton. So
we are just so grateful to see you. Thank you for even popping on. It's really, really appreciated. I'm going to chuck a question at you because we want to hear your voice. Quick question. We've asked all the other panelists as well, is what is your proudest moment since becoming an MP?
Oh, I definitely say, definitely in terms of making my maiden speech, because for me, as most of the other MPs have probably highlighted, this was my third selection. I've stood for Parliament before. I've stood for an internal selection before and haven't won, and I'm sure people have touched on it. As a black woman, you have to be resilient. And if I wind back to my selection process, the applications opened on a Monday. I went for the interview, and the hustings was on a Sunday. So on the Monday was the start of the half term. I didn't have any childcare. My husband was away. And I thought to myself, how am I going to contact 2,300 odd members to try and get them to vote for me and then turn up on a Sunday? So it's about that resilience of never wanting to give up, not doubting yourself, and people thinking, oh my God, you know, she's going again. And I thought, if I don't win this, they're going to be like, oh, her again. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to put everything into this and I am going to win this. And I went in with that positive mentality. And I thought, and there were so many people during that week, it was, like I said, it was a short selection. There were so many people during that week that probably thought, this girl's lost the plot, she's mad. Because I was already speaking into existence that I am the candidate and I'm going to be the MP when the Prime Minister calls this election. And that was the spirit and that was the positivity that I used, because we as black women have to make sure we champion ourselves. If we don't believe in us, no one else will. You have to believe in yourself. And when you've been rejected, when people have told you no, when you've gone for interviews, because you're essentially going for an interview with so many people say, choose me as your candidate, and they've told you no, for you to then pick yourself and go back and do that, and especially in your home seat where it's people that you know and people who actually don't want the best for you, you've got to be quite resilient to do that. So for me to actually then win that selection, knowing that I walked into the room on my hustings day and there were over 520 people in that room, and you know, we are talking about us as black women, out of those 520 there were probably maximum 12 BME members, including myself. Knowing that I had to win that room, you know, I'm so proud of myself, and we have to say that sometimes. And to then take up my seat and give my maiden speech was, you know, just the absolute honour for me.
That's wonderful, thank you. The obstacles that all of you have overcome is incredible, and I did want to sort of touch on that a little bit within the context of what's going on at the moment in the States, obviously, and over here. And we've had a couple of questions come in about that. So I'll just throw this one out to you, Taiwo, and then to Abena as well. It is a well-known fact, this is from Salma, it's a well-known fact that BAME women MPs receive far more online abuse than their white counterparts. How can we effectively challenge this? Huge question, I know, but Taiwo, I'd be really interested to hear some thoughts on that.
I saw an interesting post the other day on Instagram, and it said that in order for racism, institutional racism to be addressed, we have to be able to teach our Caucasian counterparts about the small things that actually affect us in our daily life. So a good example is when I change my hair, no one ever seems to recognize me. And I always find that weird, because my nose hasn't changed, my height hasn't changed, the scar on my forehead hasn't changed. I have recognizable features. Why is it that just because I've cut my hair or it's longer, that you can't recognize me? And things like that makes you think, oh, am I odd? Because I don't have that same difficulty of recognizing a Caucasian counterpart that I see. I notice when they've dyed their hair, I notice when they've cut their hair. And it's just these things that make you feel less. And small things like being comfortable when your child is sent home with sent to school with a packed lunch, being comfortable enough to eat the food that you normally eat at home at school. It's these small things that make one feel as if they're integrated into society. And I think as women, what we can do is teach our children and teach those around us that actually to accept the culture, not just at face, not just, oh, I have a friend from a different ethnicity, but actually I respect their culture. I'm able to accept it. And if you do see somebody bullying somebody in the playground because of the different, due to them doing something because of their culture, speak up for the person, you know, be that voice that is needed. And that means small things such as when, if you go out in the nightclub and you see the police harassing them, speak up and ask, why is it that you've only targeted my black colleague? That is how you make a difference. I think what's going out there with the Black Lives Matter campaign, it's crucial and it's important, but it's the subtle things that are important in order for us to actually address racism. Thanks.
Same question to you, Abner.
I think also, I think we also need to have an honest discussion. I think this is the first time, well, in one of the first times where there's been a tragic murder, and then everyone's being kind of like disgusted, upset and traumatized. But these things aren't anything new. It happens on a regular basis. And I'm kind of sick and tired of having these conversations. You know, if I'm going to be completely honest, I do feel that, you know, something else is going to happen and everyone's going to kind of forget about it. It can't be ethnic minorities constantly championing this. Like Tyro said, we need our white counterparts to amplify our voices. And I think also recognise the power that, you know, white individuals have, particularly in positions they have where you see ethnic minorities are underrepresented, and being that those individuals that amplify. And sometimes maybe if there are positions coming up for office or stuff like that, if you see that there's a lack of diversity, thinking about maybe you should step aside and allow someone from a minority group to go for those positions. Do I feel that we're ready for that? I don't. I think that we need to change the way things work and the way things, the way people enter into dialogues. The words I see hear a lot is unconscious bias. You know, particularly when I've spoken about my experiences where I've had it being kind of watered down by others, and it's about recognizing it. And the way I use my argument a lot is the way people are so comfortable talking about gender equality, women's rights, just replace those words with ethnic minority rights, and then you will basically get the same argument. It's the same thing essentially, except it's to a higher standard. But also recognizing different ethnic minority groups face different barriers. So particularly if you're from a black background, you're more likely to be stopped and searched. And like a lot of us, I'm sure I get regularly trolls on Twitter, and for me that's the norm. I knew coming into this field that this was gonna happen. So, you know, it kind of toughens you up, because, you know, you just kind of suspect it. And, you know, I'm not saying that people should come and call it out and stuff like that, but it's about recognizing that these are the barriers that we face on a daily basis, but we still come into work and we still smile. And also just basically, you know, just checking out and seeing, actually, is there anything else we can do as individuals to kind of help stop this from like continuing on a regular basis? Because it's not acceptable, it's not normal, but for a lot of us this is our normal life. So yeah.
Leading on from that, Flo, I'll just ask you this question. We've got a question from Stella. It says, name one change that would make sure underrepresented groups are seen, heard and involved in political decision making. So I guess looking at the practical outworkings of what we've been saying, what's one change that you would like to see to make sure that underrepresented groups are seen?
Within the political process?
Yeah.
I think it's now time that we do look at all BAME shortlist. We've been talking about it for a while as a party, and I think the same fights and coercions and discussions and motions that Harriet and the other women went through to get all women shortlist is what we now, as the next generation, we have to take that mantle. We have to look at how we do ensure that we get more BME people selected and elected. Someone said to me that, you know, a man is never going to stand up for you in terms of his seat. They will stay there forever. equally, I don't think it's a case of you're going to have, what I've seen is that, you know, a white ally is not going to stand up and say, actually, I want a black person to replace, a BME person to replace me. So I think we do, as a party, need to look at that discussion. Yes, there are issues around legality, but I think, you know, it's something that we do need to look at. And for people who say, oh no, you have to be selected on your merit, blah, 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 the same way, again, we have to look at how we make sure that it's not about saying that people aren't being selected on their merit, because we know there are excellent BME candidates, but they do not have an opportunity to even get selected before, you know, let them even be a candidate before they then put themselves forward to the electorate. They can't even get past being selected by us as Labour members. We need to discuss that as a party and say, why is that? So I think that's the key thing that we as a party should have an open and honest discussion about.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of the Labour Women's Network and the amazing work they did, amongst other people, but on all women shortlists, I think the time has come for looking at BAME shortlists as well. We totally agree. That's really helpful. Claudia, anything you'd want to add, like one specific thing that you think would make a real difference, a real change?
Well, there's never ever going to be one specific thing, but let me just say this. I want to just be absolutely clear about this, and I think everybody needs to understand this. Black faces in high places by itself does not bring about change. So the issue isn't just about having black faces. The thing is, you want change, and you want to know that you're going to have transformation and you're going to make a difference. And that's, in a sense, why it's important to have, you know, the kind of representation that we have in Parliament, where 20% of Labour MPs are now Black, African, Asian, minority ethnic Labour MPs, because the change comes with socialism. Yep, and we're delivering a socialist agenda. And if you don't have that voice there, then you don't get the change, you don't get the different ways of doing politics. We are lawmakers. We bring up, you know, we affect change. We can create policies, we can make change happen. If we think globally, we can also get together with other lawmakers across the world, progressive lawmakers. That's why it was so important, for example, why we joined together with progressives in the States, for example, to call for the end of global debt. These are the kinds of change, transformational change that we demand. And it is a demand and not a would you please. We are no longer in a position of would you please do this? It is now a demand. Nothing happens without demand. And therefore, if you're going to have change in terms of representation, you better make sure that the people that you're seeking to bring in to make that change can actually demand. Because if they can't, then no change will happen. And so it's really important that not only are we fighting for that representation, not just in terms of what I call the three nexus of power, politics, business, and the media, that we get that change that reflects a voice that creates demand and change, because that's what makes this series of politics, that's what will make it exciting and different. We joined under this manifesto as Labour MPs to say that we will be on the picket line, we will be at the demonstrations, we will be standing shoulder to shoulder, and we should be standing shoulder to shoulder today with Black young people that are on our streets demanding change. That's where we need to be. And that's why when you have the police service, which can only operate on the basis of trust and confidence, what they should be doing is standing shoulder to shoulder, seeking justice, because that's what happened to George Floyd, that's what that demands. And we can never, ever give up, because it's been going on for decades. This Black deaths in custody, this injustice, it's been going on for decades. We were campaigning on it before we came to Parliament, but now we have the power to enact change, and that's what we need to do.
Absolutely, and that's why tonight's been such a privilege. To be here with 4 change makers who have fought their way to get to where they are and are making such a huge difference. We are really, really grateful for such a massive dose of positivity this evening. And we just want to take this moment and say thank you, and we're here for you, and keep doing the good that you're doing. It's fantastic, and we will support you all the way. We've run out of time, unfortunately, which is gutting. I knew we'd have so much more that I want to talk about, but please, if you're interested through tonight, you've been watching and you've got more questions, more things that you want to get involved with, please contact FWN Women's Network or Labour Women's Network on Facebook and Twitter. Get involved, and just let's get supporting each other. This has been an amazing first Wonder Woman Wednesday. Very proud to have been involved, and ladies, thank you very, very much. Keep on doing the good that you're doing. Thank you.
Is that it?